Ezekiel chapter 4. You also, son of man, take a tile, and lay it before yourself, and portray on it a city, even Jerusalem. Lay siege against it, build forts against it, and cast up a mound against it. Set camps against it, and plant battering rams against it all around. Take for yourself an iron pan, and set it for a wall of iron between you and the city. Then set your face toward it, it will be besieged, and you shall lay siege against it. This shall be a sign to the house of Israel. Moreover, lie on your left side, and lay the iniquity of the house of Israel on it. According to the number of the days that you shall lie on it, you shall bear their iniquity. For I have appointed the years of their iniquity to be to you a number of days, even 390 days. So you shall bear the iniquity of the house of Israel. Again, when you have accomplished these, you shall lie on your right side. You shall bear the iniquity of the house of Judah. I have appointed 40 days, each day a year, for you. You shall set your face toward the siege of Jerusalem with your arm uncovered, and you shall prophesy against it. Behold, I put ropes on you, and you shall not turn yourself from one side to the other until you have accomplished the days of the siege. Take for yourself also wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, and spelt, and put them in one vessel. Make bread of it, according to the number of the days that you will lie on your side, even 390 days, you shall eat of it. Your food which you shall eat shall be by weight 20 shekels a day. From time to time you shall eat it. You shall drink water by measures, the 1/6 part of a hin. From time to time you shall drink. You shall eat it as barley cakes, and you shall bake it in their sight with dung that comes of man. Yahweh said, Even thus will the children of Israel eat their bread unclean among the nations where I will drive them. Then I said, Lord, Yahweh, behold, my soul has not been polluted, for from my youth up even until now I have not eaten of that which dies of itself or is torn of animals. No abominable meat has come into my mouth. Then he said to me, Behold, I have given you cow's dung for man's dung, and you shall prepare your bread on it. Moreover, he said to me, Son of man, behold, I will break the staff of bread in Jerusalem. They will eat bread by weight and with fearfulness. They will drink water by measure and in dismay, that they may lack bread and water, be dismayed with one another, and pine away in their iniquity. And so Ezekiel is now given the job of setting up a model siege. So he gets a tile and draws Jerusalem on it, and he puts it down, and he builds battering rams and siege mounds, and he lays siege, symbolically, to this city. The Lord said it was a sign. So he's demonstrating to the people that Jerusalem's going to be besieged. Now, keep in mind that the book of Ezekiel is in chronological order, and this is before Jerusalem was besieged. So Jerusalem was already attacked by Nebuchadnezzar twice. Ezekiel was taken away in the second of those attacks, but Jerusalem still stands, and King King Zedekiah by this point is the king. And Jerusalem is going to be besieged, and he's demonstrating it to them, but they all don't believe it. They, they're not convinced that God's going to destroy Jerusalem and besiege it, but he's demonstrating it to them with like a living sign. There's quite a few of these living signs that happened. Isaiah had to go around basically naked for 2 years. Jeremiah had to do things like walk all the way to the Euphrates River with a belt and go to the potter's house. And there were various prophetic signs that were done. Well, now Ezekiel gets his turn, and it's a crazy one. So he starts out by building this model city, but then he has to lay on his left side for 390 days for the sins of Israel. Then he has to turn over and lay on his right side for 40 days for the sins of Judah. And while he's doing that, he has to make cakes made with mixed seeds like barley and millet and lentils and beans and spelt. So he has you grind all these seeds up and kind of make a flour of a type, make cakes, but he has to cook these cakes over human dung. And of course, he's horrified by that, as everyone would be. It would be more horrifying for a Jew because of all their ritual laws from like the book of Leviticus. But the idea of cooking over human dung is horrible. That's like the fuel for the fire. So he complains about that, and the Lord gives in and says he can use cow dung. Way better. And that's still unclean, by the way, but it's a huge improvement. And so that's his sign. He has to do this as a sign to the people of what's going to happen to Jerusalem. I can't imagine laying on my side for that long. Sometimes you lay on your one side in bed for a few hours, then you got to turn over because that's too much. So to lay on your side for that long would have been a horrible experience. But some people said that he didn't really do it. Some people said he just wrote down that he did it. It was the Lord didn't really say that. I think he actually did it. I think that there's no evidence to say that this is a made-up thing. No, he did it. And he, just like the other signs that we have with the prophets, like Jeremiah walking to the river with his belt and all of those things, these are things they did as prophetic signs. So, he lays on his left for 390 days, lays on his right for 40 days. What's the go with these numbers? I got to admit, I was very mystified by these numbers. I had no clue what they could mean. Well, that's not true. I had a slight idea of what they might be hinting at. But I'll give you 10 seconds to think. What does these numbers mean? When you go back into the history, I'm interested in chronology, like the timing of things, and I have been, all the way through the Bible, I've been looking at how old people were and adding up all these numbers. It's fascinating to me. These numbers don't seem to match much. There's no, Israel was like a country for a lot longer than 390 years. From the time that they turned really bad and got their bad king Jeroboam, from then until they were destroyed was only 200 and something years. Like this doesn't seem to be like an even 390 anywhere that you can match this number with. And then Judah was a country for even longer, but the number given to them is only 40, which is a smaller number. So these numbers don't seem to match anything. So there's a whole symbolism here with these numbers that has to be figured out. Well, I thought I'll go to the trusty commentators. I read like 12 commentators. No one knows. So here is a genuine biblical mystery, these numbers. And however, I had this, like I said, I had a bit of a hint about what these numbers could mean, and a lot of the commentators had the same hint. Way back in the book of Genesis, Abraham was told by God that his descendants would be... No, it wasn't Genesis. Yeah, it was Genesis. They were told that they would be in the land of Egypt 400 years, roughly speaking. But when they actually left Egypt, it's in the book of Exodus, it says that it had been 430 years. Well, these numbers here, 390 and 40, add up to 430. So I was thinking, the addition of these numbers is the same number, 430, as what we had when they were in slavery in Egypt and they came out way back in the Genesis, Exodus. So that was the hint that I had. I thought, this is like connecting with the thought of slavery to, slavery to Egypt, but slavery to sin perhaps. So my thought was there's a connection there with that idea. One of the commentators said, this was his comment, he said, the children of Israel were enslaved in Egypt 430 years, and now the Lord was saying they're going to be enslaved for another 430 years. Well, that's not quite right either, because from the time of when this happened, there's no 430-year period until they're liberated or anything like that. And they're kind of under the control of the Babylonians, and then the Persians, and then the Greeks, and then the Romans, and then Jerusalem is destroyed, and all of that. There's no period of 430 in there and the whole period is longer than 430 in it. So anyway, that doesn't make sense. But this thought of this idea being connected with slavery, the number reminds us all of that. So maybe you want to think about that and contemplate what these numbers could mean. And if you have any ideas, put them in the comments so that I can see your comment and think about it too. So very, very interesting numbers here. The number 40, mind you, is a symbol used over and over and over all the way through the Bible, and it's the number used here for the sins of Judah, and it means testing. And that's exactly what Judah was about to go through, testing. And Jesus was in the desert for 40 days, testing. The Israelites were in the desert for 40 years, testing. So the 40 is a symbol of testing. And so I think Judah was going to be tested in the years ahead, and we can see from the Bible that they were. So Ezekiel is laying on his left and then his right for these horrible amounts of time, 390 plus 40 days. He's eating bread mixed with different seeds. In the book of Deuteronomy, they were told they weren't allowed to mix their crops. So there's a symbolism there of something that's unclean. That he's cooking the food over cow poop. Once again, a symbolism of something unclean. And he's symbolizing what would happen in the siege, because in the siege, they don't have the resources to only eat clean things. They start eating whatever. And if it eventually gets so bad, they become cannibalistic. But Ezekiel is symbolizing he's eating unclean food as a symbol that that's what's going to happen to Jerusalem. It says here that he had 20 shekels of bread by weight every day. Ellicott's commentary worked out that this was 10 to 12 ounces of food per day. In other words, it's not very much. It's the bare minimum amount you can survive on. It says that he drank a hin of water every day, a sixth part of a hin of water every day. A hin is 5.7 litres, so he's drinking just under a litre of water every day, which is similar. It's enough to get by on, but we really need to have 2 litres of water a day, so I hear. And he cooks it on cow poop, which is horrible. The whole thing is supposed to symbolize how bad the siege would be. The food was going to be rationed, the food was going to be unclean, people were going to be in horrible dismay, and I think he does a great job of symbolizing it. I remember listening to Dr. Creasy talk about these prophets, and he said, Isaiah, he was the thundering prophet. He said, Jeremiah, he was the weeping prophet. He said, Ezekiel, he was the weirdo, the weird prophet. Well, I don't know if he was actually weird, but he did weird things. And that's probably why Dr. Creasy said that. Lord, I thank you for the word of God, even the weird parts of it. Lord, I thank you it's there to show us how serious sin is. And Lord, I know the Israelites didn't realize that all the terrible things happening were the consequence of their behavior. I pray, Lord, you'd help us to always be aware of our behavior and to walk in the ways of Christ. Amen.